Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Transfer Portal presented by No Context College Football. I'm Doug, and here today I have my colleague Adam. Adam, how's it going today?
Going good. Another rough weekend for me on one side of the football, but we digress. I'll be all right. How are you?
Doing good. Kind of annoyed. Gave up two touchdowns this week, so it's been pretty painful.
I think that's annoying.
Yeah, no. On the more serious note, the injuries suck, but not much you can really do about that. At least the ones early on, but towards the end, they should have pulled the starters. But gotta get the rest. Like I said, we won. We won fairly comfortably. Handled a Tennessee team that had a good offense, like pretty easily after that initial drive. So I'm not really worried until Charleston Southern's this week, so I'm not really worried about them. Texas always a rival. Always got to worry about them, and then the SEC title game. So I can rest for the next week and a half, which is really nice. I mean, really nice.
Very nice.
All right, guys. So to take you into today's episode, as you know, our Tuesday episodes are recaps, and we have a lot to talk about. Starting off, we have the polls, the AP poll. Like I said earlier, we usually record this on Mondays, so the playoff poll is not available by the time that we record and get this episode out to you. So to go to the AP poll, for the most part, it is pretty standard. Georgia number one, Alabama leads Cincinnati. Then everybody else did move up outside of Oklahoma, who lost and moved all the way down from 4 to 12. But everybody else moved up at least one, and Ole Miss moved into the top 10 this week. So, Adam, do you have any thoughts on the initial AP poll?
It's about what I expected. I don't really have many problems, honestly, with it. I would like to see maybe Houston move up a little bit from 17, but I can't really complain. I thought Oklahoma fell around when they would. I thought Wake Forest would jump them as well because Wake Forest did have a good win against NC State, and they're looking good still, even though they have that one loss now. But other than that, I'm fine. Alabama jumping Cincy, I wouldn't have expected that, but it doesn't really matter much. So everything else, I think, is pretty. They got right. I have no complaints right now.
I agree with you. Like, Alabama played New Mexico State. New Mexico State's known as a team that you schedule when you don't want to face the FCS team. So It's literally just a bye game. And Alabama was impressive. They did beat Alabama did beat New Mexico State pretty convincingly, outside of the fact New Mexico State scored first. But at the same time, though, like, Cincinnati, it was probably one of their better weeks since after the UCF game where they pretty much struggled week after week. They did kind of start off slow, but like in the end, they did win pretty convincingly. So I wouldn't have had Alabama jump them, but everybody has a perception of Alabama being the second best team in the country. Do not necessarily agree with that. I think Ohio State has been probably the best performing, like probably the most talented team. I do think that they've been somewhat more consistent compared to Alabama. But like I said, pretty much this week, everybody in the top 10 took care of business pretty convincingly. So not really going to get into arguing about which team belongs where. The one thing I do take away is that Oklahoma falling all the way to 12. Baylor's ahead of them. Like, with Oklahoma's loss, like, going to the broader perspective for the playoff, they're done. They're too far back. Even if they win Bedlam probably back-to-back weeks, they're done. Can't see them actually winning. Can't see them making up all that ground because you think about it. Because even though you're going to have two Big Ten teams lose, between Ohio State, Michigan State, and Michigan, you're going to have one of the SEC teams lose, and even then, they'll probably still be ahead of Oklahoma. Then you have potential Oregon, who they face Utah twice, most likely. Like, there's options to lose, but then you look at the rankings, like, you have Notre Dame. He plays nobody the rest of the season. They're going to be next man up if things break their way. If somehow Michigan State or Michigan beat Ohio State, or both do, they'll both leap. And if both do, then Sparty goes to the conference championship game, and Michigan has a case on the outside looking in. For like the Alabama case, like the outside looking in for a playoff spot. Like, there's so many teams that have jumped them, and I just can't see Oklahoma making up that ground. I agree with you on the Houston point, where Houston should be getting more love. I do think they should be ahead of A&M. I do think that they should be ahead of UTSA. I'm a big Roadrunner fan in terms of they should be ranked higher, but I do think Houston has played better competition. I do think that Houston is good, and this is coming from a person that said Dana Holgorsen should be large in part fired for being not good the first 2 years, but they've done well. They've done well. So give them credit. And then I'll give the voters credit for putting San Diego State back in. Great win over Nevada. Utah back in. Like Arkansas back in. Granted, these are going to change because Utah's most likely going to at least split the Oregon games. Arkansas is going to lose to Alabama next week. San Diego State is just difficult because the Mountain West is actually a pretty tough conference. And then NC State somehow always finishes 8-4. So, yeah, they're going to lose too. But no real complaints otherwise. Like, it's much more consistently thought of than the playoff ranking. So I'll give them that.
Who knows how that's gonna?
Yeah,
I wouldn't say that Oklahoma is done though. I don't think. It's tough because they lost to Baylor so late in the season, so they can't really make up that ground. But it'll be interesting if they handle Oklahoma State in a convincing fashion, which I think they can do. I don't think Oklahoma State's very good at all. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. You're gonna need Cincinnati to lose to Houston.
Possible.
Or lose to SMU. They could lose to SMU. I think they play next
also
week.
Possible. Yeah.
Georgia has to beat Alabama. Alabama can't beat Georgia. So, the Big Ten, I think that'll take care of itself. Notre Dame's probably in. I think Notre Dame is almost a lot because I think all these teams are going to just take each other out. But I wouldn't say that they're completely out. The football committee, we've seen their rankings. Who knows what they're going to do. But, I mean, if you beat Oklahoma State convincingly and then you might play Baylor again and you beat Baylor or Oklahoma State again, I mean, I could see them putting them in over, say, a 2-loss Alabama team if they have 1 loss to Baylor. But
I can.
What do you think?
It's possible, but they literally need everything to break their way. Because at least in the most recent article I've done, like, I know I put Oklahoma State's case was for them to win out and to have Cincy lose, Oregon lose. The Big Ten doesn't really matter because actually, let me step back on that. Because if Ohio State somehow loses their last 2 games against Michigan State and Michigan, then you're going to have both 11-1 Michigan State and 11-1 Michigan, assuming that they both win their games against Penn State and Maryland. So you have 2 11-1 Michigan schools. Michigan State has a tiebreaker, and they'll go to – they have a tiebreaker. They'll go to the Big Ten championship game. Michigan State, assuming that they win there. Michigan State's in. Michigan has a chance.
Yeah.
So, that's an issue, but that's also a pretty minuscule chance because I don't think that either school beats Ohio State, but that's beside the point. But yeah, like I said earlier, pretty much everything has to break their way. Cincy, I don't think Cincy matters in the equation nonetheless because the way that things have been going with the committee, a Power Five champion not named Wake Forest that's in the higher up echelon. Like I'm not going to assume that, say, for example, Iowa or Wisconsin or Minnesota, they win the Big Ten. They're not going to be in the playoff, of course. But like the ones in the top 10 that are conference champions that have one, maybe even two losses, will jump Cincinnati. That's just judging by like how they vote. So what happens to Cincinnati doesn't really affect Oklahoma one or the other. They do need Oregon to lose because Oklahoma will jump Oregon. Ohio State, the Big Ten, like I said earlier, takes care of itself. Like Notre Dame's in because nobody's really going to beat them these next 2
Notre
weeks.
Dame is in over Cincinnati, even though Cincinnati beat them. And Cincinnati, I mean, their schedule
So I
isn't
agree with you.
far off Notre Dame's for strength wise.
I agree with you in the sense that Cincinnati should be in over Notre Dame. I'm just saying that Notre Dame probably has the easiest run up of everybody in the top 10, top 12. So by just existing and somehow playing their way, even though like they caught every single power that they were supposed to face this year at either the worst time or it's a down year in general. USC down year. Wisconsin literally at their worst time. They've been a whole different team now than they were when they played. They caught Virginia without their starting quarterback, Brennan Armstrong. They caught Virginia Tech in a downswing. They've caught North Carolina. Actually, North Carolina is just buns either way, but that's beside the point. But like they've caught programs in their downswing or bad time. Stanford stinks. Georgia Tech has been pretty bad for at least the last 5 or so years. So Notre Dame, even though they have names, like the teams that they actually exist aren't good. So therefore, they're basically sleepwalking their way into 11-1. So like that's the only reason why I'm saying that they're in because they're the least likely of anybody in this top 10 to lose.
I'll be very disappointed if Notre Dame gets in over an undefeated Cincinnati, though.
I agree with you too. I 100% agree with you too. Like it's just nasty, but it is what it is. But like I said, Notre Dame will be close. But I'm just curious. Like I'm actually curious to see how the rest of these rankings shake up because at large spots for the New Year's Six are out there, and it'd be in the best interest for everybody if Oregon doesn't make a playoff, because then we either get like a 4-loss or 5-loss Utah, or you get an Arizona State team that's probably going to fire its coach at the end of the season in the Rose Bowl. So, and you're going to be facing one of the Michigan schools most likely. So that'll happen. And then you get Oklahoma in the sugar against probably Ole Miss because of how the tiebreakers worked out. Ole Miss will finish 10-2. Actually, I'll say 9-3 because it's the Egg Bowl. Egg Bowl is always pretty this nonsense results. And then you got Cincinnati, most likely with a random opponent. And yeah, so you have so many different scenarios, but it's looking nice down the stretch. But we still got weeks. Got weeks to go.
Yeah. I think
Wait, what?
It'll all figure itself out in the end. It always does.
It does. It does. Speaking of time and things figuring itself out, Jimmy Lake got fired. Not only him, Butch Davis has also gotten fired / left the program. Florida International. Hot takes, thoughts on Jimmy Lake leaving Washington. He's been kind of under fire for the past few weeks / in general. And then Butch Davis, if you have any.
Yeah, as far as Jimmy Lake, we talked about it, I think, in like the second week, that is just I don't think he's a bad coach per se. I just think he just made some horrible decisions. I don't know why he hired Donovan as his OC. I think that's a consensus. Nobody understands that hiring. And then when it's obviously it wasn't working, I know it's a bad look on your as a head coach to, let your OC go after 2 games, but it's just I think he let him stay there too long for one.
Agreed.
And then it was just the wagon had already fallen off. I'm surprised that they let him go in season because Washington normally doesn't do that.
Yeah.
And he was kind of the quote unquote, protege from Peterson. He was there as a defensive coordinator and everything. I thought they might give him another year to hire an actual offensive coordinator, whoever that may be. But I mean, maybe they have somebody else that they're already looking at, already talking with. That'd be the only reason why I could think they would let him go mid-season like this, or it's just something that we just don't know about. As far as the Butch Davis thing goes, I didn't know much about the whole beef between him and the administration, how they weren't letting him hire, his staff. His assistants couldn't go on like recruiting trips and things like that. And they posted his job offering on their website as he was the coach. I didn't know about any of that stuff. So that whole situation just seems like a mess. I don't blame him for leaving. I thought he was doing fine there. He had winning seasons. They had that big win against Miami. What was it, 2019? It's just, I don't know. It seems like it's some upper level management stuff that's going on. A lot of jealousy. I don't know what it is, but maybe they didn't like each other. Grown adults acting like children. I don't know. But I think he'll be fine if he chooses to coach again. I know he's a little older. But as far as Jimmy Lake goes, Washington, I hope that they figure it out, find a good coach, because the Pac-12, I mean, it's just I'm tired of the up and down of all these teams. USC goes up and they're down. Washington, Arizona, Washington, Wazoo. Like, let's have some consistency and some good football. So I hope they figure it out. I'm rooting for them. What about you? What do you think?
So with the Lake stuff, like you said, John Donovan's arguably the worst offensive coordinator I have ever seen that's not named Tony Elliott or James Coley. Or, sorry, Brian Ferentz, because Iowa's offense is goddamn atrocious. Yes, but John Donovan, if you remember Penn State having an awful offensive line.
I do.
That was him. Remember Penn State having an awful offense before Joe Moorhead?
2016.
That was John Donovan. There is a reason why he got fired, folks. John Donovan stinks. Jimmy Lake hiring him when practically everybody in the country telling you he stinks. Sign one. Sign two. Actually, he was reading off The Athletic. By the way, subscribe. It's a great publication. They give you a lot of articles, inside depth. But besides the plug, I was reading about how Lake wasn't receptive to fresh ideas outside the program. He was promoting guys from within, which one hand I do admire, but second hand, if your offense has been the drizzling shits, you need some outside ideas in the worst way.
Well, he came in when he got hired. That's what he said. He said he was gonna, stick to what Peterson built and not go off ship. So I mean, they knew.
Yeah, but I'm like, no, like the reason why you stay on top is you got to evolve. Like Saban,
I agree.
Defensive coaches, they love that ball control. They love slowing it down because their defense needs a rest. The game's not like that anymore. Do you know what you need? Spread offense, air raid, some semblance of a passing game. Unless you're in military school, no need for a triple option. I'm not saying Washington ran triple option. I'm saying that you have to evolve the offense with the times. Because if you don't adapt and adjust, your team gets really predictable. And at the same time, it's not putting butts in the seats. Attendance was down. Even with like the restriction, I'm not sure about the Washington restrictions, but I was reading the articles. Attendance was down from the last years of Peterson, regardless. Attendance was down. The interest in the program was down. You can't lose to Montana. You can't be scoring single touchdowns. It is just awful. Like Lake took his inspiration from the NFL a lot, tried to run like an NFL program. How many times have we said this? They're two different cultures that don't necessarily, you can take bits and pieces, but try to make it one whole copy paste. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. And then on top of that, his incidences with players while he was a head coach and assistant coach, they had no choice to really fire him, whether it was the on the field stuff in terms of how they played and then his behavior. It was just not looking good. Um, it's actually hilarious how both him and Nick Rolovich have not coached in a single Apple Cup game because their last year's game got canceled. So schools have had head coaches that have came in and gotten fired for being idiots. One for public health, one for public behavior. But yeah, also don't, if you're a head coach, take everything seriously when it comes to recruiting. Don't that gaff about academic recruiting, academic rivals. That's not how to do it. That's just no. And then in terms of Rich Davis, it was time. The last 2 years, Florida Internationals won one game against the 15 that they've played. So 1-14 it's bad. I do agree with him that the FIU admin stinks. The AD that retired, fired Mario Cristobal, you guys know, is the Oregon head coach. But Mario did coach at FIU, and he got fired for one downswing season for Ron Turner, who hadn't coached in college in a decade. He tried to get Ron Turner for like the longest time, and Ron finally accepted. Flamed out, stunk, and here you go. You have Butch Davis, and he took over on Thursday. 3 bowl games, 3 years, beat Miami, and then the rest was kind of history. But he's not wrong about that, man. But it was time. See, if he was wrong about that, man, FIU probably would be in a better conference, but they're not. They're stuck. But speaking of Miami, Manny Diaz, the AD of Miami got fired today, Monday actually, and everybody's saying Manny's on the hot seat because of one, losing to Florida State in the fashion that they did, and two, new AD usually means everybody's on the hot seat. You think Manny's going to last a year, or he's going to get till next year and get gone, or?
I don't see it. I think there's just no way. New AD, man, it's just. I think there's too many other options out there for coaches. There's, if you want to get, Michigan State or try and persuade Baylor's coach, or even get someone like Tom Herman, just somebody flashy. It's just how Miami does it. I don't see him being there next year at all. I don't think he deserves to be either, to be honest. They've had Miami always seems to have some sort of injuries and stuff, or something always goes wrong. But when you watch them play, it just seems so. I know it's Miami, so it's gonna say when I say it seems flashy, like, well, it's Miami, it's what they do, but it seems like he has no control over the team. And I think it's just time for him to go. Maybe he'll find somewhere else. Hope he does, but I wouldn't bring him back if I was an AD.
Yeah, no, like I think Manny survives one more year.
Think
The only
so?
reason why I'm saying this is because Miami, that buyout is not good. And Miami most likely will have to replace their basketball coach as well because he's also been stinking, Jim Larinaga. So affording all those buyouts is not really financially feasible. So I think he stays for one more year, but like next year, pretty much all bets are off. If he starts out even 0-1 or 0-2, it's not good. But like
Yeah,
you
I wouldn't
said,
be surprised if they go hard after, Mel Tucker or somebody this offseason. Like
see,
that's higher.
from Mel's standpoint,
Or
like,
into somebody.
so my thing is like for coaches from that standpoint, nowadays, I wouldn't want those jobs in terms of Miami because you got the era of old players pretty much breathing down your neck for every move. Like Miami's having like old former players like 3.5 hour meeting that's being recorded. Like you have all these alumni. The base is pretty much the former players pretty much pushing down your neck to make it what Miami was. Miami will never reach those heights again. That will never happen. They can be good, not consistently good, but they'll be good. Like but they'll still be trying to relive the good old days. And it isn't like there's only probably what 1, 2 people in the country that can kind of control that, and they're in Alabama and Clemson respectively. So that Miami job is not good in terms of that. And then also the admin pretty much hates all sports. So that's another thing. So yeah, Manny I think survives another year. May not be a full year, but he'll start 2022 as the Miami coach. Is my opinion. And the final Florida coach that we're going to talk about, Dan Mullen. 52 points to Sanford.
Yeah, it's
After the
bad.
recruiting gaffe, after giving up 40 to South Carolina, getting embarrassed by Georgia. Of course, I throw a shameless plug in. Losing to LSU, but giving up a record set of rushing yards to them. It's just been a bad year for the Florida Gators. Do you think Mullen survives or no?
See, I think he does. I think if I had to pick between him and Diaz, I would say he survives a little bit more. Just because, yes, he shouldn't have. That whole recruiting thing that was dumb. I don't know why you would say that, especially when Florida is like 10th in recruiting right now in the SEC alone. And then you go out there and you're stinking it up. But I mean, he's proven that he can develop talent. He's not a bad coach. And he might not be a great coach, but he's not a bad coach. I think they give him another year. Let him know he's on the hot seat. Figure it out. If next year they're still, giving up 45 to Sanford, then he's probably he might not even survive the season. Florida is a program where football is everything over there. They got the whole Tim Tebow stuff. He's all over TV. So I would give him another year. I think he's earned another year, but he's definitely on thin ice. He has to watch what he says too. You can't just say dumb things like you just don't care about recruiting, and then you're 10th in recruiting and you're giving up 45. It's not smart.
It's bad. It's bad. I think my first thought was, unless it would have taken a major catastrophe for Mullen to get fired. But allowing South Carolina to put 40 up on you, allowing Stanford to put up 52. losing to this LSU team. Georgia, Alabama, yeah, those losses are kind of expected, whatnot. But think about it. This is just not good in terms of being a actual program. So I think Mullen, if he loses to Florida State, he's toast. If Florida isn't bowl eligible, he's toast.
Yeah.
They have Missouri, who's also not really good this year. Missouri's also fighting for bowl eligibility. So you have pretty much elimination games for bowl eligibility coming up. And it's not pretty. So if Mullen loses out, I think he's done. If he loses to Florida State, I think he's done.
I can agree with that. I think if they're not bowl eligible, then yeah, he's probably done. Honestly, I don't even know if he even wants to be there. Sometimes it seems like he doesn't.
Because he realizes that he can't pull what he did in Mississippi State at a big school, which is funny because he came up under Urban. And Urban was doing this shit for like long. Like Urban was able to adapt and adjust and be that guy. But yeah, no, Mullen, I didn't say he looks tired. I just think that he's too howdy doody for the big leagues. Like, kind of reminds me of Shane Beamer in a sense where, except for Shane Beamer gets a little bit more doe-eyed and a little more honest, but like Shane at least has like that energy. Like Mullen's energy isn't there as much. It's just cringeworthy attempts at humor. But yeah, no. So if Florida loses out, he's done. Or if they lose to Florida State. Missouri, it's whatever, but you have to beat Florida State.
I can agree with that.
Yeah. So, like, I think it's just a pretty tenuous time. Like, the only Florida coach that's safe right now is actually no, Jeff Scott's safe because South Florida was literally in hell before he got there. And then Gus is safe because it's year one. Norvell's safe because Florida State actually is fighting, which is progress for them. Yeah, like Florida State's generally like not good, but they're doing better. They're doing better. Like, granted, Jacksonville State was absolutely hilarious to watch, but they're doing better. Can't really. It's not like they're getting blown out, which is progress for them. So I can't really be mad at Florida State. So, but yeah. Speaking of the SEC, we have two new SEC members joining us, and both lost this week. We have Oklahoma losing to an actually good Baylor team. And do you want to take this one in regards to the second game? Because let's go ahead. I'm not even going to say anything.
At this point, it's like beating a dead horse. So I come in here every week and I complain about them. The culture at Texas right now is not at all focused on football. I don't think the players care about it. Everybody, I think Texas is like Hollywood. They just want to go there, wear the burnt orange, wear the gear around campus. They all play football for Texas. They don't care about winning. I was watching the game. We were losing to Kansas. We scored a touchdown and they're celebrating like we just, went ahead in the college football playoff. And we're still losing, not even like tied. We're still losing. And it's like I don't understand. Sark, he just can't coach. I'm not gonna say he can't coach. I think that he can't coach these players. His offensive scheme doesn't work for the players that he has. So I think he deserves time because these aren't his guys. But I mean, at some point, like what you're doing isn't working. It's the same things with Texas. After the first 15 scripted plays where they look amazing. It's, we're going to run a stretch to Bijan for 3 yards. We're going to do a screen pass and then an RPO. That doesn't work. We're going to punt. Very simple, very vanilla. And he was supposed to be this innovator, but it's very easy to predict Texas play calls. And you see that what teams are doing. And on the other side of the ball, can't tackle, can't stop the run. The game plan to beat Texas is very simple. Run the ball. You'll be just fine. See it happen with Baylor. Saw it happen in Oklahoma. Saw it happen with Oklahoma State. Even if you're losing, just keep running the ball. Keep hitting them in the mouth. Eventually, they're going to break, and you'll be just fine. Honestly, if you told me that everybody on that Texas team was on the team next year, except for maybe Xavier Worthy, he's the only one who looks like he wants to win out there, then I wouldn't lose any sleep. I don't think any of them deserve to be there. I think that was evident. Did you see that clip? I'm sure you did.
The Bo Davis bus rant, yeah.
Yes. I mean, it's clear. It's clear that the coaches see it too. Like they're smiling and laughing. We just got our ass kicked, and we're smiling and laughing. Like they don't care about football, and it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for me. Tired of hearing everybody talk about Texas and how bad we are.
Yeah,
hopefully, we get some guys in there that want to win. Want Sark's guys. Once again, Texas has good recruits. It's just developing the talent, getting guys that fit your system. We'll see what happens though. As far as Oklahoma and Baylor, I was shocked about how bad Baylor looked. I mean, not Baylor, Oklahoma looked. I don't know what they're doing at quarterback. Maybe it was just a bad game for Caleb Williams, but he looked horrible. He looked like he was playing in high school still. Like he forgot. Which is shocking to me, but Baylor look good. They play tough. They're gonna run the ball. They're gonna hit you in the mouth, and I mean, a lot of teams can't stand that. So it was a good win. Proud of them for that. But,
yeah, no, dog. So first of all, can you move a little bit to your left? Yeah, I need to get that on. Hold on. Yeah.
This is for basketball. That's for basketball. That's not Texas football.
Yeah,
That's
they
Texas
also lost to Gonzaga too.
Gonzaga's
so
pretty
I
good.
wouldn't. That's true, but like it was just an awful day for y'all. All right, so Texas, I have seen instances where the coaches inherit teams where the players don't care for that particular coach. It's not anything that the coach did. It's just that they came in under their old coach and of that old regime. It's just basically a culture clash. I've seen it happen. Alabama under Nick Saban, year one, they lost to Louisiana Monroe. Next year was some of Saban's guys, the guys that bought in, Sugar Bowl. They also lost to Utah, but that's not the point. But like you've seen it all the time with guys that stay or guys that leave. But it happens. Like you said, I saw the bus rant. I've seen Texas literally play like garbage through almost every second half of every Texas game in the Sark era. I also do think that Sark, his job is too big for Sark. Sark is never really a big school coach. That's why I wasn't really a fan of the hire to begin with. Like UW fans were annoyed at him because, hey, by the way, UW is Washington. Reference to here, sorry, Wisconsin folk. But yeah, so UW fans, they were annoyed with Sark because he was always 6-win Sark or 7-win Sark because there wasn't a hump to get over. He wasn't able to get over that hump. The issue with him at USC was obviously his demons, but they weren't looking as good as they were, saying with Lane Kiffin, or Coach O, or even Clay Helton. Like Sark was probably the worst looking coach that they had out of all of them, and like at their peaks, because the bottom of Clay Helton is really, really fucking bad. But anyways, for the most part, I thought Sark was a weird hire. Like it made sense because it's an out of the box hire, but weird hire for Texas. But at the end of the day, you gotta play better second half, man. I mean, not this game, because this game you guys kind of stunk the whole 60 or so minutes. But you gotta play better. You cannot be down 35-14 at half to Kansas. This is not 2007. Kansas is not undefeated. This is borderline unacceptable. I will say this, though, about Kansas. They did give Oklahoma enough for their money. Oklahoma also lost. Yeah, Oklahoma also lost.
Compete.
But literally, that's probably their only close conference game, Oklahoma. Every other game, they've given up at least 40. I mean, they get 56 here, but they have given up 40 outside of Oklahoma, which is 35, and then Kansas State, which is also 35. It's not pretty. Like, you just got to call it a day, kids. You just got to call it a day if you let up Kansas put up that many points. Kansas' other high was 33 against Duke. And Duke's just about to, they should fire Cutcliffe, but I feel bad though. Cutcliffe's a nice guy. Pretty much built that program, but he's also bringing it back down to what Duke was beforehand. But yeah, no. 35-14. Texas is a program that needs to find answers. I don't think Sark is the guy that gets some answers, but I think he can get them to better than what they have been temporarily.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he's not on the hot seat. You can't lose 5 straight to your rivals and then lose to Kansas on top of that, too.
I think the reason why I don't think he's on the hot seat is one, he needs time.
But
no, I get what you're saying. Like he should be if it was practically almost any other job. But one, he needs time. And two, you guys are on the hook for so many buyouts, it's not even funny.
That is true.
I mean, Texas does have that fuck you money, but that's beside the point. But it's just so many.
Those boosters, they will pay that money. They don't care. They'll figure it out.
But at the same time, though, it's like fired 2 coaches in 2 years. Like, it's not looking pretty for stability standpoint. If I was a coach, up and coming coach, I'd go to Texas. I'm gonna get fired the following year, you know.
Well, what Texas normally does, they give coaches a whole reset where they get to rehire the whole. They pretty much make the head coach fire the whole staff, hire a new, and try again. If that doesn't work,
that's fair. That's totally fair.
That's what they've done. They did it to Charlie Strong, Tom Herman. You know,
Charlie did need to fire those assistants. They were fucking awful.
But I mean, they just lost Bijan Robinson, dislocated elbow, so it might not even make a bowl game. But he'll get another year. He might have a new staff next year, but
let's
see.
Yeah. The funny thing is, like Texas's last 2 games, they're pretty. Although Kansas State's actually looked pretty decent, but I mean, some of these games are winnable though. So it's just so weird.
It is like it's frustrating too because, like, it seems like the ship is sinking, but we were up big against Oklahoma, up big against Oklahoma State, up against Baylor. Like, you win those games, and it's you just have one more good quarter.
Yeah.
And it's a completely different story around the Texas Longhorn, but here we are. That's how football is, I guess.
Yeah. That's how football is. And Oklahoma, it's not really much to be said. Caleb Williams shouldn't be playing, not because Rattler's better, but also it's mainly because true freshman for the most part. Like it's deers and headlights, basically. You don't have to start every true freshman that you need to. I mean, granted, Spencer was Steven Powell dog shit this season, and Caleb did provide that spark to win. but you've seen him at times look pretty shaky.
Yeah, I
True
wouldn't be
freshman.
surprised if Spencer Rattler does come back. I mean, I don't. You know how it is when you bring in a new quarterback and the team doesn't game plan for it. They can't, you know.
Yeah.
So that was able to work against Texas. They beat TCU, Kansas, and Texas Tech. They're all at the bottom of the Big 12. So I mean, it doesn't matter who was the quarterback of that. They were going to win those games.
Yeah. And the main issue now is that this is like the hard part of Oklahoma's schedule. Like they already lost test one. They lose out, then most likely they'll be playing at the Alamo Bowl. And Alamo it's a nice consolation, but it's not really Oklahoma standard.
That's what Texas.
I'll give them this though. Yeah, and I'll give them this though. Alabama was in Citrus Bowl 2 years ago, won national title last year. Clemson most likely be going to Belk Bowl or something. No, sorry, Duke's Mayo Bowl. That's what they call it now. Duke's Mayo Bowl. Yeah, so it happens. Like not programs not going to be on top every single year. This year's just not Oklahoma's year. It's okay, but there needs to be changes on both sides of the ball. But no pass. Not really much to say with that. Oklahoma still controls their own destiny in the Big 10 race. I mean, Big 12 race. So I can't really get on them for that. Anyways, speaking of races, you got our division races. For the most part, these conferences are some of them are pretty straightforward. And then others are really, really complicated, such as the Big 12. And yeah, a lot of these are pretty complicated. Like we have ECU somehow being alive for the AAC championship game, but they need practically help from everybody. Yeah. So you have 4-2 ECU still alive. And I think SMU's eliminated. Correct me if I'm wrong. SMU's out officially, right?
Oh, they play Cincinnati, and then if Cincinnati loses I don't know Cincinnati's schedule. They would have the tiebreaker over them. Cincinnati have to lose to ECU.
Yeah.
Well.
So then ECU would have the tiebreaker over. It would be like a 3-team tiebreaker, wouldn't it? Because if ECU wins out, then SMU, it'd be ECU, SMU, and Cincy at what? 8 and it would be 6-2. Sorry, they'll be a 6-2, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if all three are 6-2, wouldn't ECU have like a tiebreaker? Because that's I think the only way I know.
Let me see. I'm not sure, to be honest.
Let me pull this up because this is some
It is complicated. Who does ECU play? Maybe. What is? They would have the same What is the tiebreaker? Do you know what it is? Is it home?
Think it is. I'm searching. I'm just pulling it up because this is. Slide.
These my Cougars are looking good though.
Yeah, I thought they officially clinched because they only have one game left, regardless.
Yeah,
because they only play UConn to close the season.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they officially clinched.
Yeah.
So
that was the home field.
Yeah. Should races. Sorry, folks. We're just pulling this out for you. But okay. While we search the American, basically
right now SMU is ahead of ECU in the standings, so I imagine they have the tiebreaker over them somehow.
Yeah, because it's also going to be a 2-team tiebreaker though. Because if it's a 3-team, that's where I think things get wonky.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh.
Tulsa. So yeah, look, if ECU wins out, and then they need
Yeah, so if SMU and East Carolina win out, Cincinnati's eliminated. If yeah, because Cincinnati's eliminated. And playoff committee.
oh, is that what it
So
goes by?
SMU is gonna get it.
Yeah. For
Damn,
sure.
that's awful. I mean, no, it's good because SMU I do think is a better team, but it's actually
ECU can still get in. SMU loses to Tulsa, and they could still get in. They beat Cincinnati, then lose to Tulsa. They'll be 5-3, and ECU wins out at 6-2. I mean, so
that's
it's still have a shot.
true. That's true. But yeah, no, it's too complicated. It's also like 11 o'clock, and I can't really think about it like that. But yeah, it's also 11. I can't really think about it heavily because my brain is completely shutting down. So before we go, everybody, what did you watch this weekend? Like, walk me through your day. If you were busy or if you had to keep tabs on your phone, like what were you watching?
First, I woke up. I watched UH play. They played early, so that was good. We did good. Demolished Temple. And no problems with that.
My mom graduated from Temple, so
yeah, they did not look good. But
yeah, no, Rock Carey stinks. He should be fired. But
yeah, I watched that. Then I watched the Baylor versus Oklahoma game.
Mm-hmm.
That was a good game. I was keeping tabs on Cincinnati as well.
Yeah.
Then after that, I was peeping Georgia, Tennessee. I thought it'd be a little bit more interesting at first, and Georgia just pulled away completely. So I turned that game off. And then really I was kind of just flipping in between all the the 7-8 o'clock games until I watched the Texas Longhorn basketball team get demolished by Gonzaga.
Yeah, it was a rough Saturday for you outside of UH. So
started hot, we started good, but after that, a lot of L's, lost a lot of money.
Yeah, been there. I know. So I'll start off this week. I apologize to the Mac, but middle of the week, I did end up catching the end in Northern Illinois Ball State. Oh. But yeah, that was literally it because the kicker made the field goal. And he was celebrating like crazy. But yeah, I did not watch any action. I apologize, Mac family. Y'all are dope. But yeah, I didn't watch my action. Did watch Pitt, UNC. Great game. Very entertaining. But same time though, like Heinz Field is garbage. It's literally the worst playing surface I've ever seen. It looks rough immediately. But it was a fun game. And in terms of Saturday, main focus was on Baylor, Oklahoma, and an early window while going back and forth with the Auburn game. Before, I was literally just going to turn off the Auburn game entirely, but then Auburn went for Atlanta Falcons and decided to, how the fuck you allow that many points on a run? It was just nasty. put on a little bit of Florida Sanford so I can laugh at Florida, but then they pulled away, so I just turned it off. Then the big boys game. Georgia, Tennessee, main focus. If there was probably towards the end, I did watch the end of Miami, Florida State, because one of the schools was going to go outside. In this case, it was Miami.
Mhm.
And when schools go outside, not named Georgia, I do find joy in them. So watch that. And my alma mater did play Michigan State. I watched absolutely none of that because that program is not necessarily worthy of my attention. They do got a lot of good
Not a
talent
Tagovailoa
offensively.
fan.
What?
Not a Tagovailoa fan.
Oh no, they're like in terms of like the actual talent on the team, it's great. I just hate the coach.
Nah.
So I hate the coach, but he's going to be there a while. So also, I got to pay my loans back in February, and I'm not really trying to do that. So just kind of boycotting off principle. So, but yeah, no, the actual talent on the team's dope. I have no issue with the players. The players are good kids, like no real beef. So, oh yeah, I forgot to mention, I caught the stops from Michigan to end the game against Penn State. Had to give them credit because that was pretty good defensive work. Just also shout out Jim Harbaugh, probably the best coaching job he's done, honestly, overall, because Michigan was not supposed to be this good. So, yeah, no, I got to give him credit. Like, everybody had him like 8 wins max. So it's like credit to him. Like, this is probably the best like coaching job ever. Surprisingly, I missed the 7 o'clock games because I took a nap. So I missed Texas A&M, Ole Miss. I missed NC State, Wake Forest. I woke up for parts of the end because you know when you nap, you like wake up for a little bit and you just check the TV. Is like, huh, what's going on?
Yeah,
Right?
some of the scores and wakes you up.
Yeah. So I literally woke up. I saw the score being 35-14 for Texas, Kansas. I was like, they're not doing this fucking again. And I was like, my eyes are blurry. Because I like obviously you see me with glasses, like I'm blind to shit without them. So I was like, there must be a color error. All right, so go back to bed, right? Luckily, ESPN, what's it called? I got YouTube TV, so I checked my phone like an hour later or like close to it. And this was like next thing I see overtime. Like overtime. So I was like, shit. So then I actually did watch the overtime. It's like, that's just, nah. That
Wasn't pretty.
should be happening. Shouldn't be happening. So, yeah, so I caught that tail end of that game of the Longhorns and the Jayhawks. Football, folks, because Kansas did beat Texas in football twice. Just like Maryland beat Texas in football twice. Yeah. So and then since I was awake, I just ended up catching the Mountain West games. Not the Utah State game because that was pretty much ho hum after that comeback. But caught the end of the San Diego State Nevada game. Shout out Punt God. Shout out Carson Strong. Shout out the San Diego State defense for the great fourth down stop while Nevada was driving. So it was beautiful. So I caught the tail end of that, and then I went to bed. Luckily, there wasn't a Hawaii test because if there was a Hawaii test, I would 100% fail. Because bro, I can't wait for those games. But yeah, no, that was my weekend. And I have no idea how I'm going to watch this week because it's mainly cupcake week, at least in SEC. So all I know is I'll be watching Michigan State, Ohio State, and I'll be watching
SMU Cincinnati.
Yep, those are the big two. Actually, let me just take a quick look at the schedule before we close out. Action again. Actually, have to watch Louisville Duke's the Thursday game. Skip. Sorry, Louisville. You're a decent program. Duke just stinks. Friday. Man. Why they put Arizona State Wazoo on Pac-12 network? Memphis Houston's going to be pretty fun though.
Yeah, that'll be a good game.
Yep. Air Force Nevada is also fun. Some decent Friday matchups. And then, okay. Surprised Michigan State, Ohio State is in the big noon game. But beside the point. Yeah, a lot of teams are. Yeah, this is also a pretty weak slate so far. Florida State, Boston College, interesting.
Utah, Oregon.
Yeah. So, question while we're here. So, do you think Utah might tank that game?
No. Why do you think that? I'm assuming you think it.
So, I'm thinking it, right? Because if Utah beats Oregon, then Utah has to win that second game. Otherwise, they don't get that Rose Bowl slot. Versus if Oregon beats Utah, regardless of what happens, since the Pac-12 has to take the Rose Bowl has to take a Pac-12 team, Utah's in that prime position to get the Rose Bowl slot. Versus if they win this week and lose the Pac-12 championship game. Because Oregon's going to get that slot or, yeah. Because I don't think.
What do you think they value more, the Rose Bowl or playing in the Rose Bowl or winning the Pac-12?
Yeah. So if do you think they can beat them twice in a row though?
I don't. I bet you that they think they can though.
I agree with you, but I don't think they can. And my thought is take the Rose Bowl, take the payout. But I mean, of course, the players won't. Players have too much pride; they won't purposely tank. But like, the admin strategically thinking about this because their odds go down of getting the Rose Bowl slot if they win this week.
So, I'm sure they're thinking it's not the worst thing in the world if we lose. Like, oh.
Yeah, it's not the worst thing in the world.
We want to win. We want to win everything. But
yeah, of course, yes, absolutely. So, yeah, no, like. See, that's the thing. Like, there's so many different layers of, damn, ULM LSU's a ESPN2 game. That is nasty. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's down bad week. So, and Auburn, South Carolina is the ESPN game of the week. Also down bad week. So, yeah, no, it's pretty down bad for everybody, folks. So, if you have loved ones, you can actually no, there's a ranked game for each time slot, so I wouldn't say that. But no, like if you might go spend time with people, folks.
I see some upsets, who knows?
Yeah, no, who knows?
Might
have, yeah, Kansas State could upset Baylor. There's some options. There's just some options that I'm generally not as intrigued in watching. But
it's one of those weeks where you'll be checking your phone to see if you need to turn on the TV.
Exactly. Shout out YouTube TV, everybody. That's the way to do it. So, yeah, no. Any closing words for us?
Hope my Cougars handle business on Friday. Not talking about Texas football anymore. They're dead to me.
What is dead may never die.
But hopefully it's some good games. Michigan State, Ohio State, obviously that's a big one. I'm interested with how who starts for Oklahoma. Iowa State's not an easy team to play against. They like to play. They don't make you play hard. They don't play dirty. So
yeah, no. Oklahoma has struggled with Iowa State the past few years. Also, do you think this is the worst Iowa State team in a long, long while? So
yeah, not supposed to be, but they are.
Yeah, so, no. I did call them stinking it up when my season prediction happened. But I did say they'd be like 9-3. I wouldn't say 10-2. I said they were like 9-3, but they've been even worse. So yeah. So all right, everybody. It's been a pleasure.
Yes.
As always, this is Doug. This is Adam. Signing off on Transfer Portal. We will see everybody on Thursday for our preview pod. All right, everybody.